That's an internet sensation.
It's a Don't Look Up. It's an internet
I'm not
sensation.
on the internet.
Yeah,
except for this.
You should be glad.
Welcome, everyone, to my appearance on the internet. I try to avoid the internet. I hear it's no good.
It is no good.
I hear it's full of shit.
It is that.
Except for Up-to-Date Cinephile. Well, that's not shit. That's good. That's
depends on who you ask.
Content.
Depends on who you ask.
I don't ask anyone who says otherwise.
Well, Up-to-Date Cinephile, I think this is like, what, our 13th episode? First one of the new year, so Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you listeners, watchers, viewers out there. We're so happy to know you. We're here to make you happy. We're talking about two movies. We're talking about two movies,
man,
Kyle.
And I actually almost wanted to avoid entirely talking about these two movies.
So we're talking about Don't Look Up and
the Lost
some daughter movie, Old Daughter, Lost. I kept calling it the Old Daughter. I don't know why.
You've seen it.
I have seen it. I have seen it. That doesn't mean I'm get the name right. I don't know why that's. Don't Look Up is easier to remember. I think that's probably one of the things to recommend the movie is it's got a very memorable name.
I actually was one of the few people who saw both of these in theaters. These are both Netflix releases, and now, ever since Don't Look Up came out on Christmas, I have been inundated, I think onslaughted, with so many articles on Facebook. It's been an onslaught every day. I
really wish we would have done Don't Look Back instead, which I really like.
Don't Look Back. Don't Look Back.
D.A. Pennebaker documentary about Bob Dylan.
Or Don't Look Now, like we could do Nicholas Rogue's film. Just Don't Look is general advice. But every day I am just getting articles upon articles, and cynically, Katie pointed out to me what it is. It's Netflix doesn't care if this movie is getting atrocious reviews, which it is. I mean, this is like 55% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I mean, that's at least 60% more than I would give it.
Yeah, that is higher than what I would have ranked it, higher than the grade I have given it.
That means that more people. I know that 60% is fresh.
No, it's rotten. This is
but I'm saying I know that 60% is the threshold for fresh.
Yes.
But at 55% well rotten, that still means that a slim majority of people have given this movie a positive review.
Yes, and what it is.
If I understand percentages.
Yeah,
sound off in the comments if you think that's wrong.
The cynical nature of what Netflix is doing is that they are forcing a dialogue on this movie, which we're going to be having. We're going to partake in it. We're going to partake in that.
Fuck you,
Netflix.
Fuck you, Joe Netflix, whoever owns that company. Ron Netflix, I think. Whatever. I still got DVDs from you motherfuckers. You probably charged me for them, actually.
Yeah, probably. I still have a rental from them. I have Lindsay Anderson's Oh Lucky Man. I think I've had that for 2 years.
You paying still, or did they just...
I think I still pay for the service, yeah. I need to change that.
You should cancel.
I should cancel that.
That's good money after bad, buddy.
I know. So basically, the cynical nature of this is Netflix is just pushing, and advertising, online presence, a conversation. They want you to be talking about this movie.
I guess that makes sense for Netflix, right? Because Netflix is a subscription model.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what they want to have, it really is kind of a no news is good news, or no news is bad news situation.
Yes.
It's like, if they've got a thing that you need to see, for whatever reason, because it's good, because it's bad, because it's like... But it's culturally significant, right?
Yes.
I think that's what they want to say.
Yeah.
I haven't been paying attention to these things. They can't get to me.
I don't... Yeah.
But
they definitely want this to be culturally significant.
So they'll try to make it culturally significant.
Yeah.
Which I guess if it's not just like really good, that would be the move, right?
Yes.
Say it's really important, or... if you want to be a part of the conversation,
and that is wild.
It worked,
to
like
me.
you said, it worked because I watched this movie. You watched this movie.
Yeah.
Well, you would have probably seen it anyways because you see everything.
Yeah.
I may or may not have seen
I subject myself sadomasochistically to the culture of cinema.
I didn't pay money at the theater to see it.
I did.
I watched it on my laptop.
I did. I watched it in a theater. I gave it a chance a couple weeks prior to Christmas before it came out. And I was miserable. I was miserable watching this movie because the tone.
Do we want to do a top line takeaway? Yeah, you're miserable.
I was miserable. I was miserable watching this movie because far be it from me. I love satire.
This isn't that. So that has no bearing on our conversation.
No, and even mean-spirited, misanthropic satire. You can go back to like Dr. Strangelove and go, that is mean-spirited, nasty, mocking, has this standoffish tone, and silly, absurdist. and I love it. It's one of my favorite genres: black comedy, dark comedy, satire, skewering what is obvious is one of my favorite genres. And while I was watching this, this is not satire. This is not even good farce. This is not even good analysis. This is not even good representation of what is actually the problems at hand in dealing with what is an allegory, a really on-the-nose allegory for what climate change initially, and now is a COVID-19 reactionary piece as well.
There are only two things this movie could be. Either one of the greatest pieces of right-wing agitprop ever created, which we can explore that.
Absolutely.
Or one of the worst movies ever made. And I'm not exaggerating. I found this to be as bad a movie as I can remember seeing.
Yeah. It's miserably bad.
It is atrocious. It is atrocious. It's offensive. It's gross. Right? Because you talk about Dr. Strangelove, certainly, if not the greatest political satire put on film, certainly in the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, Kubrick, right, and Peter Sellers, who I think it's fair to call as much of a creator of that movie as the director.
Yeah.
At least they take aim at the right people, right? They take aim mostly at the powerful. I mean, you get some weird characters that kind of swim through. The Slim Pickens character always one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But I mean, the people that they take aim at, are people who are worthy targets of our satire. And so one of the messages, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, and quite frankly, I don't really care. You should never see this movie. And if you see it, I'm sorry. The only people who might be able to be good in the world are scientists.
Yeah.
Everyone else is terrible. Everyone else is a piece of shit. Some scientists are also pieces of shit, but you might be able to be a good person if you're a scientist. Otherwise, every other human being is basically a piece of shit.
Piece of shit. Yeah. And it does not surprise me that people like Neil deGrasse Tyson have come out immensely positive about this movie, because essentially the movie's like, listen to me, because I'm smarter than you.
Let's be clear. I'm going to talk to you, the audience. Liberals hate people. That's what this movie is about. Adam McKay was given $75 million as the world's most sanctimonious liberal to make a movie about how he hates everyone. Really everyone, except for some scientists. That's the only people he hate.
Yeah.
That to me is amazing. There's something about the fact that someone gave this dude that much money to make this movie, and a bunch of people signed on to it. A bunch of, Leonardo DiCaprio doesn't seem like a dumb guy. Meryl Streep, probably the greatest film actor ever. I mean, It's certainly in the conversation.
Sure, certainly.
Right? I mean, the only line I left once in the movie. It was her line. So kudos to you. For getting the one legit laugh out of me. I didn't even it's not even funny bad. This movie is not funny bad.
No, it's exhaustingly unfunny.
It's like being just scolded. Just being scolded.
Condescended to.
And not even scolded say what you will about, your documentaries like Inconvenient Truth or stuff. I mean, I don't have a problem with hard movies about hard topics.
No.
Right? And I don't even have a problem with movies that are critical of our approach. But, this movie doesn't even have anything interesting to say about why what's happening is happening.
No.
Which, if you had, an iota, just the tiniest, most infinitesimal modicum of curiosity, you could at least have some sense, for instance, why we don't address climate change. Part of the reason we don't address climate change is because a significant number of people in Congress are captured by energy interests. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's why we keep burning fossil fuels. We shouldn't. But I mean, this is the thing that's so bizarre to me. There's many things that are bizarre to me about this movie. I mean, I've always thought of McKay as more of a leftist than a liberal, but this movie to me just reeks of just liberal disgust,
elitism and disgust.
Just disgust with everyone, and it's particularly odd given that the story is also by David Sirota, who is one of Bernie's top guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, as someone who has love for Bernie Sanders, voted for Bernie Sanders as many times as I was able to, that's not the message of that part. Whatever you think about, the socialist or social democratic, DSA left, that's not, the message is that, we can we should be working together. We should be trying to win people over.
Yeah.
Which is incidentally the fucking business of politics. And if you don't like that, if you find that distasteful, then you should not be interested in politics. Because Max Weber tells us that politics is what? It's the slow boring of hard boards. Mm-hmm. Right? And this is a movie that is just about how someone is disgusted.
Yeah.
Is disgusted by the world, but he doesn't even have anything interesting to say in his disgust.
None whatsoever.
And his disgust is so unfocused because it's directed at basically everyone except some scientists. Like I said, there's really the only good people in this movie.
Yeah.
It's basically the people are all rubes. They're all every human being is a fucking moron except for a couple scientists.
Yeah.
And so the movie just has it's a movie that just has hatred. It has hatred for people, and probably even more hatred for its audience. It is contemptuous of its audience.
Yeah. Well, and yet even the people that would agree
with
with
How does anyone like this movie?
I don't understand.
How does anyone like this? This movie is god awful.
Going through the reactions that I see, people say, "Oh, it's important that it's a mirror reflection of our society."
No, it's not.
It isn't.
It's
not whatsoever.
It has nothing to do with our society.
Yeah.
It's aesthetically similar to our society, I guess. It's as if like a dumb alien with a week's worth of research, maybe. But not even that, right? Because
this movie is so up its own ass and smugness that it really is up its own ass in a flatulence degree that it should be regulated for carbon dioxide emissions.
Okay, so
really.
We're doing spoilers, whatever. Don't fucking see this movie. Basically, the arc of the movie is nobody believes the bad thing's going to happen. Everybody believes the bad thing's going to happen. Some people believe the bad thing's going to happen. Just at the most stereotypical, like most superficial understanding of the problems today in American political culture, you should have started in that third state. The fact that the scientists come out and say something bad is going to happen and nobody believes them isn't believable even on the premise of America sucks.
No.
Right, it's just not believable even then.
No.
So once again, like what is satire? I can't put down any ground rules because I'm sure that there's an exception to everything. But like, you have to be talking about the thing you claim to be talking about, and it has to resonate as insightful vis-a-vis that thing.
Yeah.
So what? There's a comet coming, and that's climate change. Well, first of all, that's not a great analogy for any number.
Not whatsoever.
But let's even accept that.
Sure.
Because I do agree with him. I do agree with the premise that climate change is the most pressing existential problem of our times, and that
there's a large degree of impending upheaval, but it wouldn't affect, I don't think, everybody. I think it would affect. Well, that's
the thing is, climate change is more complex,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like in Field Notes from a Catastrophe, Elizabeth Kolber is one of the sort of seminal books, like popular books about climate change. She's a New Yorker writer. She says that part of the reason people can deny climate change is because the evidence of it is in places that don't have many people. Like the strongest evidence of it is in like the Arctic and places that are sparsely populated. Mm-hmm. So yes, what are we heading for? We're heading for rolling climate catastrophes where some people are more affected than others, and we have climate refugees. I agree with all of this. All of it is frightening and terrible. And not super analogous to a comet hitting, although I guess I do agree with the basic premise that it's a huge problem that's staring us in our face and we're not addressing.
Sure.
So I agree with that premise as far as it goes. But like this movie just has nothing to say about the world we actually live in. It does not resemble the world we actually live in any interesting or even exaggeratedly interesting way.
In fact, I thought they missed an opportunity about what essentially happens with our... I see him being frustrated with gridlock. I see him being frustrated with bureaucracy.
Oh yeah,
he's
pissed off.
Yeah, he's pissed off. And he has been pissed off. I mean, he was pissed off in The Big Short. He's even more pissed off in Vice. And he's even more pissed off with Don't Look Up. You'd think that somebody who gets to make millions upon millions of dollars, big budget features with actors would have a better temperament.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I just think that like this doesn't get... He's apparently so angry that he can't get anything right.
Well, no, and that is the problem.
He's lost his comedic ability because you need... Like what would require something a little scalpel, like instead just gets hit with a fucking giant hammer from like a fucking, Looney Tunes cartoon, right? It's like he just wants to drop an Acme anvil on our heads. But the problem is that, like, setting aside the question of the efficacy, which, like, who knows, right? I don't think this movie's going to change anyone's mind, but
no, it's not even meant to.
I don't think that like if anyone saw this and was affected by it, they would be someone more centrist or right wing, and they would see it and think, like, liberals do hate me. That's what this is about. Liberals hate people.
Liberals hate people. They hate me. They're mocking me. They're condescending to me. And but I'm actually seeing a lot of people being affected by it in the positive sense, where they find it to be a powerful piece. A powerful, again, this mirroring of our society.
I found it very powerfully awful.
Yeah, it was powerfully awful. I agree, because the whole movie has a tone of smug mockery that is.
This is why the left has failed. This is why this movie is why the left has failed. Not the cause, but it is a perfect illustration. It's just that the people are driven. Not everyone, but there are a lot of people who think they're better than everyone else, and they're driven by contempt.
Yes.
They're driven by contempt.
Well, and
they look at a fact. Like, there are troubling facts out there. Like, the fact that 70% of Republicans believe that Donald Trump was actually elected and the election was stolen. That's troubling. Like, that's frightening and frustrating. And I don't fault anyone for being upset about it.
Sure.
Or for feeling something. But, like, if you're like one of my core beliefs in life, we're going to get philosophical.
Sure.
We're going to fucking talk about this piece of shit movie. Is that the most incoherent thing you can say, or one of the most incoherent things you can say, is, if I were that person, I wouldn't have done what they did. Mm-hmm. If you were that person, you would have done exactly what they did, because that's what it is to be that person. Mm-hmm. People are the way they are for complicated reasons, and you have to, the classic F. Scott Fitzgerald, you gotta, the first-rate mind, you gotta hold two conflicting ideas in your head at once, right? You have to both see, like, that's bad. Like, that's a bad thought. Like, not caring about climate change and being sold a bill of goods about how it's not going to happen, that's bad. But the people who believe it are not bad people, and they can be persuaded. Some of them can be persuaded.
Yeah.
Right? And once you've given up on that, and I guess there's an honesty to this movie, I guess, in a sense. Because, and it's the same way that, someone got a hold of the switch in the Biden White House and basically put out a statement saying, if you haven't been vaccinated, you're in trouble and you're probably going to die. Like, you might die. If you've gotten vaccinated, you're okay. If you haven't gotten vaccinated, it's your fault. You might die. Mm-hmm. And which is that this movie, to use a overused internet expression, says the quiet part loud. We hate these people. We're angry and we have no answer. And we don't believe people are persuadable. And I know that feeling because I've felt that feeling. Yeah. But it is extremely enervating, right? And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the message. But, like, to make a $75 million movie to say, like, we're fucked because everyone's terrible. I mean, it's just it's just the most. It's just the most nihilistic, navel-gazing, contemptuous, gross thing you can do.
And then it becomes grossly sentimental at the end, which we'll get into. But because I want to ask you how this tone shift that the movie takes is wild to me.
Honestly, I felt like, not the very end, but I felt like a couple of, believe it or not, a couple of the, like, Malikian sequences he does are actually the least bad parts of the movie. Yeah. Because at least they show, like, that's the thing, is McKay is not, like, a bad filmmaker. He has filmmaking ability.
Yeah. I mean, when you spend a lot of your time making comedies as the basis of his career, comedies a lot of time are inventive takes on all sorts of genres. So whether he's doing The Other Guys or Anchorman,
honestly,
he can blend those together, and he has good cinematic sensibility.
Honestly, the movie that you could make that would be interesting would be about the making of this movie, because that would tell you something.
I think so.
Because, like, what is it? What happens when all these people, like, these motherfuckers read the script? It's not like anyone is going to twist Meryl Streep or Leonardo DiCaprio's arm or Jennifer Lawrence. Like, all these people are big stars. I understand that Adam McKay's a name and they want to work with him, and they're maybe broadly sympathetic to his political outlook, as most of Hollywood is. But, like, this is hot fucking garbage.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the movie does not, as you're saying, does not have anything interesting or probing or incisive to say about our society. Memes, it like it's sort of criticizing our meme culture, our obsession with celebrity, our obsession with media.
This is so low grade.
It's so low
grade. Yes. Oh yeah, they make memes where she looks ugly. Okay, cool.
Yeah, or
they make memes.
DILF, Doctor.
They make memes where he's sexy. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's stupid. Of course, it's stupid.
It's stupid. No, but I found it wanting. Again, this is where it would take somebody who is willing to satirize a complete picture. And I always think of Armando Iannucci. He's brilliant at doing this. Whether he's doing Veep, whether he's doing In the Loop or Alan Partridge, like he's able to look at something and satirize all of the people involved, all sides, all people, all wakes of life. And I feel like there was a missed opportunity because this movie is 2.5 hours long. It's miserably long. And yet there's a beginning part, and then there's a second part, and then there's like kind of a emotional, sentimental coda.
Everybody believes. Some people believe.
And so
that's
when they have this,
no sense.
There's this. I suppose it's supposed to be funny, but they're supposed to be raising money for like kind of like I guess it's Live Aid, like kind of a Live Aid, and they have a concert, and that's where Ariana Grande gets a little funny. Sort of, not even really. It's not a funny song. It's not even a good song.
At this point, I was floating above my body. I couldn't believe that this thing existed.
Yeah.
I was so shocked by it. I really was not. I cannot emphasize how unprepared for this movie. I expected it to be unfunny.
Yeah.
Like I was prepared for it to be unfunny, but the extent to which it just hates humanity, that I was taken aback.
Well, and when it gets to this sequence, I was like, oh, you have zero self-awareness of what your role in the satire of the problem is, because there's a complexity to our gridlock and our bureaucracy, and as you said, there's interests at play, but I also think that there's a large part and focus where nobody listens to each other, and we all fashion our own truths, our own realities, and this movie is sort of concerned with that. About that there are these people in large pieces of power, whether it is the president and what they represent. I mean, she is kind of a toxic abomination.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump mixed with Sarah Palin, kind of thing.
She's Trump. Trump. That's all you need to know. She's Trump.
And
come on.
It becomes so.
Yeah, the world ended because fucking Donald Trump.
Yeah,
that's the text of the movie.
Yeah,
the world's going to end because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Elon Musk
/ Steve Jobs. He's kind of a Steve Jobs, which incidentally, a character that was skewered so much more hilariously on Silicon Valley, which is a good satire.
Yes, Silicon Valley. See, Mike Judge, who did Idiocracy, he also
Mike Judge is a good satirist.
He's a good satirist. I mean, he has a good.
Adam McKay's funny movies are not satires.
No.
They're goofy comedies.
They're goofy, silly, ridiculous. I mean, there's nothing funnier than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Samuel L. Jackson, looking at each other saying, "We're gonna jump for the trees or jump for the bushes," and then they jump off a building with Foo Fighters' "My Hero," and then they land to their death. I mean, there's nothing funnier than that. And the other guys, he can make great comedy.
No, he's funny. He's a funny guy. He's made funny movies. That's not the issue.
Yeah.
Right. The question is not whether he's funny. The question is whether he's a good satirist. He's not.
He's not. No.
And this movie is everything I hate, basically, except for like tuna salad. This movie doesn't have anything to do with tuna salad.
You don't like tuna salad? This is something I didn't know, so I'll never make you tuna salad.
Chicken salad I love, though. Egg salad I love. Tuna salad I hate.
Oh, man, that's so interesting.
I don't know if I hate it anymore, but something about tuna salad I don't like. But everything else that I hate in the world is in this movie. And one thing that this movie is brutally uncurious.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You could make a funny or interesting movie. Like, I do think we've talked about this. I always keep coming back to Ingrid Goes West, not even because I think it's a particularly great movie, but it's like...
It's interesting.
The modern day this moment is hard to satirize.
Yes.
Like, a Donald Trump presidency is bad satire of America. So I get that it's hard to do satire.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I pity the poor satirist, right? But Iannucci's done it, right? I mean, you can do it, but you have to be very smart. You have to be clever. You have to be curious. Like, this movie, like, we're going back to talking about, like, why there is or isn't action on climate change. Like, you could think about and try to talk about why that is in a funny way. Maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's been done.
Yeah.
But, like, you could, like, even where these kinds of movies don't, like, take something like Big Short, which I guess is, like, the first of this period of McKay's movies.
This is where he shifted,
and the best of them, right?
Yes, it is the best of them.
At least that's still focused and character-driven, and it's about a group of people who richly deserve to catch flack, right? Mm-hmm. Like, who's catching flack here? Like, Donald Trump? Okay, we fucking hate Donald Trump. Yeah, he sucks. And his shitbird son, right? And it's like, but outside of that, like, everyone, we all suck. Cable news, like, the news that, like, Donald Trump and cable news suck is not, like, an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, it was old, like, by the time Jon Stewart had sort of perfected the cable news takedown. That was the end of that conversation.
Yeah.
Like, nobody has done more or done better, right?
Yeah.
Like, and to the point that even him doing it got tired because it was just, like, yeah, we know cable news sucks. It fucking sucks. It's a cesspool. It's a cesspool of shit.
It's been that, yeah.
It's a cesspool of shit, and it just is an echo chamber. In fact, the show that they depict is ironically not a bad cable news show because they are non-ideological. Like, they just seem to be they're like the Today Show.
Yeah.
Which I would say is better than, like, MSNBC or Fox News, which are just insane echo chambers of, like, the party line.
Yeah, it was a very strange... The media criticism all around, whether it is the cable news, which they show with Cate Blanchett and Tyler Perry. You're right. There's nothing ideological about it, which is actually kind of the...
Yeah, they're like apparently in Adam McKay's world, the number one program in the world is the equivalent of, like, a boring local news morning show where they just kind of talk to people who have parrots. And, like, I mean, it's like a dumber version of the Today Show.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
that's the number one show.
And then it gets weirder. In Adam McKay's mind, the New York Times in his film drops a story because it's not getting enough clicks. And I was like, in what world does Adam McKay live in? Like, in what isolated ivory tower of his elitism does he so separated from the world that he doesn't understand?
But what's so funny and weird is that over the past 4 years we've seen the exact opposite, right? Which is
absolutely.
Which is that the New York Times ran with a bunch of Trump stories which turned out to be bullshit, like Russiagate, right?
Yeah.
Which turned out to be way more smoke than fire. And they just ran with it till the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Constantly.
I still don't think they've retracted all of the wrong things that they said. So the idea that they would get one bit of blowback and then drop it. Yes, I mean, that's the other problem is, like, even on the terms of the story, the first part of the story, he basically creates no counterweight.
Yeah.
So it's like two scientists against the world and nobody else gives a shit, which is not believable. The New York Times gives a shit for a minute but gets one bit of pushback from the president that they hate.
Yeah.
And they say, you fucked up, we're done with you. And then the president comes around and then everyone's on board.
Yeah.
It's so not believable, even as a cartoon caricature.
No.
It's just not, it's not even, like I said, it's like I feel like a smart 12-year-old understands American politics better than Adam McKay.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Like, this is not a small miss. Like I said, this movie is a piece of right-wing propaganda, and it is an interior document of what the world looks like to someone who's, like, on drugs or in an altered state, and whose defining feature is a kind of self-righteous liberal anger.
Yeah, I when I left the theater, it was that word that you just used, self-righteous, is what came to my mind. And I feel like anybody who is just devouring whatever this is, whatever they think that this is, they just want to pat themselves on the back. They want to feel good.
But there's so many. But I mean, this is so. Why would you want to be that person? Why would you want to?
It reinforces that kind of worldview.
No, you know, Jonathan Franzen, another self-righteous liberal, good writer,
wrote
a piece about how climate change is inevitable, and we all just need to enjoy life while we can. We should give up. I think that's going to become a dominant I think that this movie is another iteration of that feeling.
Yeah.
The stupids are too fucking stupid. There's nothing we can do. This is it. You have to accept. Like the people do at the end of the movie. You have to accept your fate.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just people are just too dumb and too evil. Right? And I understand feeling that way. I think we all have, our dark nights of the soul, right? Myself included. But like I said, it's contrary to what I take to be the core of my politics and the core of the politics that I thought McKay embraced, which is that at the end of the day, like here's the thing, right? I was having this conversation with a friend earlier, talking about change. We were talking about personal change and political change. And, if you want to help a person out, right, it probably isn't going to work to, like, tell them you need to change your life. But if you're close to them, if you're a good friend to them, you can, over time, kind of be there at the moment when things happen and know what to do.
Yeah.
Politics is the same way. Like Vladimir Lenin didn't, like, bring about the conditions that allowed the Russian Revolution to happen, but he was there at the right moment, and he knew what buttons to press and how to press them, right? And so, too, with other, like, figures who have actually changed history. Like, we don't know what is going to make things get better. And one option you have is to give up. Right? You can give up. Then that's what this movie is. This movie says you should give up.
Sure.
You should stop giving a fuck. Because we're doomed. Or you can say, like, I don't know. Right? It's like the kingdom of heaven. Like, I don't know, when it's coming. But I want to be in the right spot. I want to do my best, right?
Yeah.
And so this movie is not legible to me as a piece of left thinking at least the left that I believe in and embrace. This movie is an attempt of an elite person or a set of elite people to both feel like they're better than everyone else and reconcile themselves to our eventual demise as a species. Right? Now, I don't want to tell people how to live their life, right? If you feel like there is no hope, you have to live with that. Like you
have to make the most of it now.
And you have to you process it however you process it, right? I mean, we should all live without hope, right? Ultimately, I mean, that's what the Buddha tells us, right? That's we want to get off the wheel of samsara and this endless cycle of hope and despair.
Yeah.
So, but this movie doesn't exactly radiate a sort of Zen detachment from that which you cannot control. It radiates just hatred of people. And I think that's... like I said, I think it's shocking. It's funny because we talked about The Matrix, and that was another movie I was surprised existed, but I kind of liked.
Yeah.
This is a movie that I'm shocked exists, and I'm not exaggerating. I think this is one of the worst movies ever made.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that in just what it has stated its intentions. Its stated intentions is to be satire.
But even then, it's not good on any level. Yeah, It's not good as a drama. It's not good as a comedy. It's not funny.
It's not an instructional tool. It's not something to allow us to teach us something, to ignite a conversation.
And it's also not challenging in an interesting way, right? It's not... it's not forcing anyone to confront a thing that they don't want to confront.
No.
When you think about, I'm trying to think of good, think about stories like, I don't know, like crime stories, like In Cold Blood, where you really have to think about, I might have certain principles about mercy, but how far can I carry those principles,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
When I'm actually confronted with evil, right? Yes. For instance.
Yeah.
That's powerful, right?
Yeah.
That's powerful. Or if you take the Yanucci thing, let's think about how the sausage actually gets made.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's really think about who these people were, and inhumanize them in a way that, his targets are all deserve it.
Oh, absolutely.
And his characters, when you take I always think the Peter Capaldi character from The Thick of It and In the Loop is one of my favorite screen characters ever.
Malcolm.
Yes, Malcolm.
He's
Malcolm,
so good.
Yeah. And the thing is, he's an interesting character because he's hilarious. You assume that someone like him exists in some form or another, right? And you kind of hate him, but you also kind of would want him on your side.
Certainly.
You'd rather have him, he's Rahm Emanuel, right? Rahm Emanuel,
that's very good. Yeah.
The classic sort of you kind of hate him. He's an operator, but shit, you'd probably rather have him with you than against you.
Yeah.
And it's and what sort of compromises are you going to allow for, or how compromised will you let the people be?
Yeah.
And like the great conflict between him and the sanctimonious conservative and in the Loop.
Yes. It's fantastic.
Where you're like, yeah, I guess I do appreciate the hard sort of nasty pragmatist over like the bullshit ideologue, right?
Yeah.
So that's all interesting, right? It's funny as you go, but it's also like, okay, like, and it's not like, I don't know if it would qualify as profound, but it at least gets at the heart of pragmatic versus idealistic and kind of the things we have to think about when we engage in politics.
Well, it has a focus and it skewers it, as you said, like with a scalpel rather than a hammer. And what I have an annoyance with a movie like Don't Look Up is that, who is it satirizing? The obvious examples of Trump and all the people in power, or the Bezos or Musks or whatever, ultimately, who are they mocking? Who are they deriding? It's the people watching the movie. They're making fun of you.
I mean, annoyance is generous. I think it's disgusting.
Yeah.
I just found this movie disgusting. Like and I mean that not in the sense of like, I mean literally it made me feel physical revulsion.
I mean the irony.
But I think it's probably worse for me because I'm closer to these people. I mean, I like I said, I thought McKay was sort of on my team, right?
Yeah.
Which is like
he never was on mine.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I mean, like, because like he has been, he's a Bernie guy who's critical of Hillary, critical of, I mean, we're talking about people who are very invested in the Democratic Party versus people who are on the left but have antipathy or antagonism or at least
to the system. Yeah,
and I mean, I guess this movie does sort of. That's the other weird thing though, is that the movie is weirdly non-ideological. Nobody ever states a political opinion. Really.
You know what I found weird in this movie?
There apparently is, like, we never hear like what the opposition even thinks.
No, that's an interesting thing. This is done in such it has such tunnel vision that essentially the point that the movie makes is that it's only America. It has a weird American exceptionalism at the center of it. You get a grasp.
American liberals think America is uniquely bad.
Yes.
Or not uniquely, but they think that like our problems are somehow uniquely worse than others. Like you see this with like racism, and I mean the history of chattel slavery is horrible. It is an important thing to understand.
Absolutely, yeah.
And black-white racism, but like, I mean, shit, they get hyper nationalists on the ballot in Europe all the time, like fucking Marine Le Pen, right? Was candidate for president. Eric Zemmour might be in the runoff. Yeah. Like These are people who are like
not to undermine the horrors of the slave trade into the West. I mean, but the ones that when it went into the Middle East, it was even worse. 2/3 of the people got brutalized, and there was castrations.
I mean, here's the issue, right? You need to be able to. This is the problem: is that it's hard to be smart, which is why most people can't do it. Like, you need to be very specific about what you want to say, right? And just to sort of be disgusted. Yeah, there's a certain kind of like, it's usually older. I don't find this so true with younger people. There's a kind of older liberal that like thinks that Europe is better or whatever. And like, yeah, I agree that like there's some countries that have real social democracies that I think are good, or I think that is good about them.
Yeah, there's some places that I think have a proper blend of what I'm sure as a I don't know. Do you identify as democratic socialist?
You just call me a communist.
Communist. I tend to do that.
Me and Barack Obama are the two great communists.
I tend to do that. They're like, well, what is Ben's ideology? A communist.
He's a communist. Just a communist.
But like, you go to some of the social democratic orders. There's better kind of business freedom in those countries, where there's better articulation for that kind of respect in the private sector than we even have. So I mean, there's a mode of appreciation that you can have from a conservative or liberal side for other people, but there's also a reality to contend with to the ills of the world as well. Like, we tend to have a sole focus and a only awareness, which I think is the big irony of this film, isn't it? It's that they're solely focused on the American ability to solve or guide the way forward for this problem, and yet the world is contending with it and dealing with it in their own way. Like I feel like there's just such a weird tunnel vision to this movie that is just so weird, and it's I don't know. I just have a difficult time.
I think that here's my thing though. I think that America is a very important country. It remains the most important country in the world in terms of its power. It is a weird country. Like, I don't think I reject American exceptionalism, but we are weird.
Yeah.
Like, we have certain weird features that are
absolutely.
So I think America is worth making movies and thinking about America. I don't think it's chauvinist, right?
No.
But like, this movie doesn't have anything to say about America.
No.
Like, even with its focus on America, it's not talking about any America that exists. It's talking about, like I said, it's just a fever dream of anger and rage and contempt. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I guess if this was like a 5-minute art installation at the MoMA, maybe that could be interesting, right? Maybe if it was something even stretched out to be like his version of La Jetée, but about how he hates everyone, maybe that could be interesting.
Sure.
But at 2.5 hours, it's disgusting, it's gross, it's dishwater dull, it's unfunny.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to say. I mean, there's nothing to say.
Yeah.
Outside of like, give up.
Give up.
I guess don't look up.
We really
give up.
We really had it all. Is the takeaway.
You coulda had it all.
We really did have it all. Is really what it comes down to. It's so saccharine how this movie ends. Just I know it ends with everybody dying and the whole world being disintegrated, but the table sequence.
The scientists are good though. They have their heads screwed on straight. The scientists are the only ones who can hold hands with each other and love each other.
Just rolling my eyes at the end. I'm like, are you really?
That's why Neil deGrasse Tyson likes it, because it's pro-scientist.
It is, yeah. No,
scientists are the only decent humans.
Yes, and they are the arbiters of truth and full reason
morality.
And morality.
Not just truth, but morality, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're the only ones who are moral.
Which that's a kind of a shift.
And not even all of them, right? Because Leonardo DiCaprio ultimately kind of gets a little gray for a while. But...
Well, which could have been more interesting. It could have been a more interesting movie had they carried on that. So many
plot lines that just kind of throws up and drops and throws up.
Yeah, it's all these subplots.
But I mean, like, you want to know what this movie is all about? In the mind of Adam McKay and people like him, Ron Perlman is the Trump voter. That's who they think about. That's the guy. And it's not even and I love Ron Perlman.
I do.
And for what it's worth, like, I mean, it's a good role. It's a Ron Perlman role.
It certainly is. Actually,
I will say him calling the kids lard asses was a little funny.
I might
have chuckled at that.
That was funny. That depiction was funny. I will say they beat me into submission on one of the jokes was when the general sells Jennifer Lawrence like the snacks, and the first time she realizes that the snacks are free and that the general just took money from them. She brings it up and she's quizzical, and you're like, okay. Then she brings it up like a second time, like later on in the movie, and you're like, By the third time she brings it up, I kind of chuckled. I chuckled.
I told you the line that made me laugh most is when President Meryl Streep says that Jennifer Lawrence's character would be good with connecting with the youth and the mentally ill, which I thought was funny. Like, that was the one. That was the one time when I actually did like a legit kind of. And it was like probably kind of a loud burst of laughter just because I was surprised that anything was funny.
Yeah. No.
Cause that was about an hour into the movie, and I was already feeling like.
Well, because
I've been miserable for days because of this movie.
Yeah, all the depictions
Adam McKay should send me like $30.
The depictions of all the characters are incredibly. They range from bland to so cartoonish that it's just tiresome. Like Jonah Hill
plays a joke of Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, Timothy Chalamet as like a evangelical burnout is kind of interesting, but. That's true. It's just kind of empty.
But at that point, like when he shows up in the scene where there's been like so many plot lines that like came, like the whole thing about the Supreme Court nominee.
Oh, it's so frayed and.
It's just like, oh, well, this is
it's disorganized and
this is another dumb shit we do because we're dumb shits.
Yeah, they're just juggling so many memes in the air that when they land on one or the other, it's so empty and facile, because modern internet culture, I think, is deeper than this movie ever is, because in the modern internet culture,
there are single tweets that are deeper.
Yeah, exactly, because there's a level of self-awareness or an incisiveness that's direct and really does probe in what I think a good word you use is curiosity. When people are curious about the way the world works, even with an opinion based off of that curiosity, there out of that comes a productivity. And this movie is not productive. Not in the conversation, not in the representation, not in the method or its form. It's just not productive.
You know what this movie is, though? It is evidence of how much like the liberal America has curdled, right? Because it used to be it was the right that couldn't be funny. Particularly like when conservative Christians were the peak of the Republican Party, they were fucking dishwater dull and they couldn't be funny because when you start to try they're too angry, right? They're too like oh yeah, you know what's funny is this woman walking around, haha, she's a slut, she's gonna have an abortion, she's killing babies. I mean they were all like they couldn't be funny because they were too self-righteous and sanctimonious.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like the whole left can't meme thing. I mean, I do think there are plenty of funny people on the left, but if you're just sort of a bog standard self-righteous liberal, you're not going to be funny anymore because what you believe is that we've just lived through like a fascist dictatorship and he's coming back and the country is full of these kind of just complete worthless pieces of shit, deplorables, whatever. And you're the only one who gets it, but that's not going to be enough. The world's going to end anyways. You're not going to be funny then. You can't be funny. It's too moralistic. It's too curdled.
Yeah.
So the people who become funny then, to the extent that nobody's really funny about politics anymore. I mean, I think it's a real sign of the times that like Sarah Cooper like mouthing what Donald Trump says is what passes for like effective.
Oh yeah, humor. Yeah.
But like,
I find that maybe
you can't do better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like the SNL guy now, the young guy they got who does the Trump impersonation, it is dead on. He does have Trump down, and that's like funny to watch.
Yeah.
But guess who hasn't done anything about climate change either? Joe fucking Biden. Guess who didn't do anything before? Barack Obama. Like you can't just this focus, this myopic focus on the other, right? To use a term that liberals would love, is really obscuring. Like I said, if you want to understand what's going on, you have to have at least a modicum of curiosity. But these people have given up. And like I said, if you want a positive comment about this movie, it is an honest reflection of where these people are at.
Yeah.
It is absolutely 100% an honest reflection.
It's the sanctimony,
up to the sacred end, because that's like, we'll be the ones who get it and can mourn it in the proper way. And we'll be the ones who say, like, why did we do this? We could have avoided this. We'll be the ones who care. And that's gross. But it's honest. It's honest.
It's honest.
This is how people feel.
This is how...
He's not the only one who feels this way.
He's not the only one. This is how the internet engages in the important issues of the day as well. I think this showcases exactly the kind of the template for conversation that we're having.
I wouldn't quite agree with that. I think this is the outcome of the internet more than I think there's everything you can think of is on the internet. Every opinion from the most nuanced one to the most stupid one, and everything in between. Certainly. But this is the outcome of being overwhelmed by all that.
Sure.
And just feeling defeated.
I get that. I get that.
I see. That's what it is to me. Like, because he makes dumb jokes about memes and shit, but whatever. I mean, that's low hanging fruit. And like in another movie, it could have even been funny. But this is what it feels. This movie looks like exhaustion. Yeah. This movie is clearly the product of emotional and moral exhaustion. And like I said, I understand feeling that way. But even then, it's not an interesting take. No. Like, if you made an 8.5 where he wants to make a movie, but he can't about this, that could be interesting. Yeah, sure. Like, or a million other things could be interesting. And, like, this is a hard moment to make movies about. Yeah. Like, and it's hard to talk about your own time even when it's less weird than the time we live in. And the time, I don't think this is, like, the worst moment in history. I hate it when people think that, but it is very weird. It is very weird, and there's a lot of it's moving fast and it's hard to understand. Yeah, but this movie is not a good crack at it.
No, not at all.
To put it mildly.
Well, Is there anything? Let's challenge ourselves. Is there any actor or depiction or moment that you found positive, other than the one joke from Meryl Streep?
Like I said, I found there was momentary pleasures in the sort of vaguely Malickian things he tries to do in the middle when they do the first failed launch, and then not right at the end, but in the kind of lead up to that. And I thought, yeah, those are some nice, like, he knows how to do like one of those Malickian montages.
Yeah,
I thought those in a better movie would have potentially been impactful. And he's right to sell them to make the satire work. It's just he doesn't have a good punchline to saw them off with. Mm-hmm. Like I said, when Ron Perlman calls he's got the kids working out on the White House lawn and calls them like lard asses or whatever. That's funny.
Yeah. But that's 5 seconds in a 2.5 hour movie.
I can't put it like, I don't know. I can't put it on anyone. I mean, it's on McKay. For me, I guess maybe. I don't feel like the acting. It's not like the acting like took me out of the movie. I think the actors were plenty committed to whatever they were trying to do.
It moves in sync, doesn't it? It is a piece. It is a Adam McKay piece, and so everyone is not necessarily shining bright outside or within because they are moving cogs in that machine.
Yeah, it's not. But I mean, like, whatever. Those are all good actors. They did professional work. I mean, it's But yeah, there's no. Yeah.
I mean, the movie definitely doesn't do Mark Rylance any favors. That's for sure. He stands out for me as something.
But like I said, that character. I mean, the guy that they have in Silicon Valley, who's like the angel investor guy,
he passed away after like the second season, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I mean,
he was very good.
Yeah, but he captures that sort of character, like this kind of like weird genius, but maybe has Asperger's and is a sort of tech genius kind of thing. He captures it better. I mean, it's funny, right? Because Rylance is like, he's basically doing a sort of bad repeat of what he did in Ready Player One.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
it's the
same. I guess
but on the opposite coin.
But still, like this sort of spacey kind of on the spectrum, kind of,
Yeah. Well,
but whatever. I mean, I don't. But like I said, I just can't. This is not the kind of movie where I can muster it. I mean, yeah, is that character kind of that is the lamest character, right?
Yeah.
Because he's the most cartoonishly overwritten as what he is, right? Even more so than like Jonah Hill's character.
Oh, yeah.
But like
Jonah Hill doesn't even come close to the absurdity of like, Don Trump Jr.
Yeah, that's why it's hard to do satire, because these people are like Donald Trump. DJ TJ is a ridiculous character. Yeah. Like if you would just follow him around for a day, I'd watch that footage.
Oh, I think I would
just to see what that motherfucker got up to.
It would be enlightening.
I mean, I'd do a rail with that guy right now. But I get him and Hunter Biden together. That's a celebrity boxing match that I can't believe hasn't happened.
Hunter and Don.
Maybe after Biden. I bet you Hunter doesn't. Even in his debauched state, does not want to like do that while his dad is president. No. But after his dad has shuffled off this mortal coil, maybe we can get a Hunter
reality
Biden
TV deal.
TJ
Man,
celebrity boxing.
Come on, money's on the table,
dude.
Man.
How much at $50 pay-per-views? How many of those would sell? That would be.
It would be so good.
What would the undercard?
It could be a road trip adventure movie where they go visit other places. Like you could do a whole series, like a docu-realism series on them. Like it would be so great.
If we could get Ted Cruz just getting his annoying ass face just bashed in on the undercard, I'd be really happy with that. His face, his head is so moist. I feel like if someone hit his head, it would just kind of explode in liquid. Like just one good hit. Is that the
Texas environment, or is that just him?
I think he's just a very moist lad.
Just a moist human being.
Yeah.
Well, Don't Look Up. Don't look it up. It really is a tiring piece. But that's the thing. I feel like we're having this conversation mostly because the internet and our culture, the zeitgeist, is having this conversation about this movie because Netflix has kind of forced our hand, or forced all our hands to have this conversation.
It's the right marketing strategy. Like, Just piss people off. If you can't make something good, just piss people off. Get people fired up about it. Well, Look at how angry I am.
And it's funny. I'm not angry about any of the material. I'm not angry about anything it has to say.
It doesn't have anything to say. How can you be angry about it?
Yeah, exactly. I was so indifferent.
Except people are terrible. See, but like I said, I'm angry about it because this is closer to me.
Yeah.
Like these are people who should be on my side, and they're doing us a fucking. The only thing this movie could do to these causes is harm.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll do anything.
No.
But if it were to have an effect, it would be harm. Because it would tell anyone who cared to pay attention that the people that they think hate them actually hate them.
Yeah.
Which is not a path forward.
No, not at all. Well, let's move on to our next movie, which is also on Netflix. It's
fuck you, Ronnie Netflix.
Ronnie Netflix.
We're paying you fucking money. You should send us some money.
Send
us some free fucking sub at least. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, we gave a positive. I mean, honestly, after today, you should go look up The Power of the Dog, which is on Netflix. Like, that's worth your time. That's worth your effort.
Well, I think it's going to come. Actually, I think Power of the Dog is going to come up in this conversation.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to bring it up.
Well, we're going to. This is the Directorial.
Definitely watch Power of the Dog. Definitely watch Power of the Dog.
Definitely watch it. Yeah. That's
a good movie.
Today, we're also going to talk Lost Daughter, directorial debut of Maggie Gyllenhaal. And it's adaptation. I have notes just so I get all this correct. Is Elena Ferrante's 2006 novel, The Lost Daughter. And this was on my radar. When I saw the trailer, I was actually very interested. Yeah, boom. Yeah,
that's Kyle. He's like a submarine in the waters of cinema.
Just yeah.
Pinging.
Seeing
what's on the horizon.
Every so often, it will. Something will hit my radar and I'll be interested. I was genuinely interested to watch The Lost Daughter. And when I eventually saw it, I sat down with Katie to watch it. I went to theater in Pasadena and we sat down, nice black box theater. And
paint a picture for us. Do you have snacks?
I had popcorn. Katie doesn't get snacks because if she has a drink, she'll need to use the restroom. She'll miss some of the movie stuff. She doesn't.
I'm old, so I just give it into peeing.
Oh, okay. Well, you've given it.
I just try to. I have to have a good sense of when to pee. Right after a big moment, is one good time to pee.
And then you can figure it out from there.
They can't usually go back to back.
I did have popcorn. I had a drink, and I have to say I was extremely underwhelmed by this movie, and partially that has to be because of the promise that I thought it could have had. You're laughing already.
I mean, it's just funny because after talking about, I would just rather talk about anything other than the movie we just talked about.
Yeah.
I really wanted to like this movie
Me
so
too.
we could have a Donnybrook. Well, I knew you didn't like it.
Well, I was underwhelmed.
So I was really hoping to like it.
Yeah.
I was like going and thinking, I really want to like this movie. I didn't like it.
No.
I wouldn't even say I was underwhelmed. Because my expectations have been lowered by you.
Yeah.
But I didn't like it. I wanted to like it. There are at least, let's say, there are things to like about it.
I think so.
There are performances that I like about it.
I agree.
I like the way the movie looks.
Yes.
Yeah, it's well shot.
Yeah. It's got a lushness, but like kind of a dreariness at the same time because it is in an exotic locale.
It reminds you know what? Honestly, it looks like when I was a kid, what I thought serious movies looked like.
Yeah. So
doesn't it? I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It looks like a serious movie for adults.
and this is where I think I disagree with the cultural consensus on the movie, the critical consensus on the movie. Because it's that exact feeling. It feels like an adult film. It has this independent airiness and vagueness.
I was like, it's not like this, but it's like when I was growing up, it was like Merchant Ivory movies. Like that's serious adult movie.
Yeah,
they looked a certain way and they felt, and it's a little bit obviously like it's not really true, but this movie just like says like this is a serious kind of independent art house movie with
exactly how it opens from the opening shot to going backwards in time to see how we get to the end that is the opening shot. Everything about it is an exercise in the repetition of indie cinema that has exhausted itself, and what they are doing is they are playing tricks with the audience to suggest that the movie has something to say, or that it is deeper than it actually is. And so ultimately, I came out of the movie feeling that it did not address postpartum depression as it wants to do. It did not address selfishness in our culture. It did not address the kind of elitism that she has in herself and her judgment for other people. Ultimately, it's a character study that is very incurious about why this character behaves the way she does. In fact, instead of probing and prodding to explain, they make excuses for her behavior, which I think is the worst offense. And that's actually not what the book, from what I understand, is about. The book is actually more vague. She makes questionable, weird decisions, such as stealing the doll from this young girl.
Oh, we're doing spoilers. Spoilers.
It's part of the framework.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, like, there are instances where the movie is trying to overly explain our position. Leda, our protagonist, played by Olivia Colman, who I think is rather successful, but I feel like the movie inevitably makes it a kind of empty sort of exhibition of what is this character.
I mean, so here's the issue, right? There's a difference between something being weird and something being interesting.
That's true.
And the way she behaves is actually too weird, so it's not interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
It's only interesting if it's weird, but it's not so weird that it just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
And it's as if the honest thing to do would have been to actually attach a rope to her and force her into the situations that that are going to make the movie uncomfortable.
Yes.
And are going to allegedly reveal to us something about this character.
Yeah.
And in the absence of some sort of external, obvious form of compulsion, it becomes very unclear as to why she does what it does, and it's never revealed why she really does what. Or I want to say it's not revealed, because the movie's not really about revealing anything. Mm-hmm. But it never coheres into something compelling.
Yeah.
Like a compelling. It's just like, well, she's weird and somewhat fucked up, so she does sort of weird stuff.
Yeah.
But that's not really very interesting.
No,
like,
not really.
To me, I would just watch this movie thinking like, okay, so she keeps on inserting herself into a situation that is triggering her, right? Triggering her, some sort of post-traumatic stress she has about something in the past having to do with her daughter, which, eventually will be revealed. Or her daughters. And although one thing is, it's not clear to me that we ever know what happened to the daughters.
No,
I think maybe that's purposely ambiguous. But she does eventually give what may or may not be the accurate explanation. But it doesn't really matter. Because the point is, she keeps on inserting herself into this situation that is clearly triggering her feeling of being traumatized, right? But there's never any interesting explanation as to why she does this.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to have someone in a movie, if your movie is essentially driven by the idea that your main character likes to pick at a scab, we have to have some reason why she wants to pick at the scab, right? Maybe she kind of likes it. Maybe she secretly kind of likes it. But the movie doesn't... I mean, I guess you could infer that if you wanted to.
I don't think there's evidence of that.
The movie doesn't give you any reason to think that she does.
No.
Right? So, it just ends
Instead, it almost seems compulsory. The scab picking is compulsory.
But even if it is... Why? Like, what, like, if you want to say someone has a compulsion to do something... Well, if the movie's all about that, if that's the central thing in the movie, like the thing that drives this movie is her continuously inserting herself into a situation that she doesn't like. Yeah. And if you're going to have a character do that, they have to have a good reason to do that. Yeah. And not only do they have to have a good reason, but they have to have an escalating set. This is just pure, like, screenwriting bullshit, but, like, you have to make it more and more compelling for them to do the thing that they don't want to do and that is uncomfortable for them. And it's never made clear why she keeps on inserting herself into these circumstances, why she doesn't just book. Like, I texted you and I texted our mutual friend David, who also didn't particularly like this movie.
He did not particularly like this movie.
Like, I said, like, why didn't she just get off that beach? Just go to a different beach, lady.
Yeah, go to a different resort. Beach. Go to rent a different house.
Like, you don't need to keep going to that beach.
Well, so this is an interesting thing. What does drive her? Is it her sense of superiority? Like, because she does have that. I think she does. There is
how would that drive her?
Well, I don't know. It seems to be an undervalued quality of her life. You know, these flashbacks, which I think are more extravagant and more detailed in the movie than they are in the book, showcase a marriage where she is dissatisfied, that she wants a career or is profound and respected in her way of academia and life.
She's an academic.
She's an academic.
Maybe the saddest fact of all in this movie.
yeah. I mean, that is the sad portrait that they are portraying.
Yeah.
And so she feels undervalued in her marriage, which ultimately is something she... yes, I guess spoilers, that she leaves at one point in her life. This is something of an event of...
So here's one thing you learn from this movie. If you want to have sex with someone who's an academic, all you need to do is say one nice thing about them. And even if you're the most annoying motherfucker in the world, like someone that a normal person outside of academia would want to punch, that person will still have sex with you.
Yeah. Yes.
I didn't know that, and I learned that from this movie.
No, you absolutely. Are we talking about Peter Sarsgaard? Are we talking
Peter
about...
Sarsgaard plays the most annoying person in the world. Peter Sarsgaard plays a person so annoying. Just so punchable.
Oh,
but, if he walked in the room, I couldn't help myself. I'd have to deck him.
No,
and I'm sure Peter Sarsgaard himself is a nice person.
Maggie Gyllenhaal's husband. So.
And he's a good actor.
He's a great actor.
In this movie, he plays the world's most annoying human being.
Yeah.
He would you'd rather spend a half an hour with Mr. Bean on cocaine than you would with this guy. He's so aggravating.
I'm just now imagining Rowan Atkinson on cocaine doing that,
doing those shit, Mr. Bean shit, but on coke. You'd rather, anything. Like he's just like the most irritating cartoon character version of like a self-important academic.
Oh yeah,
and he says like some nice stuff about her at his symposium.
He's like, "You're a genius. You're great,
and she.
I love your work."
She just cannot just jump his bones fast enough.
Well, and so this ultimately goes down to the dissatisfaction ultimately that Leda has. Leia. No, it's Leda. That Olivia Colman, Jessie Buckley plays the younger version, and. I mean, obviously, it's just a immense, how they articulate it in the movie is selfishness. She says, "I'm a selfish person," and I get why that would be kind of an interesting, I guess, modern portrait of motherhood for a lot of people. That perhaps a lot of people were put into a situation of caregiving or child rearing that they sacrificed a life for. Or two weren't ready or didn't know that they wanted to do this.
That part's not hard to believe.
No, I get that.
The backstory is not hard to believe. No. Like what she does, she allegedly leaves for a few years or whatever. Maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. That's extreme, but even that, that's not hard to believe.
No.
It's the present day. This is very simple, right? We all have things that bother us. We all have places we might not want to go or people or things we might not want to see. Because seeing them will make us feel bad. They are triggers for us, right? Yeah. And maybe seeing your family, maybe seeing some member of your family you really don't like. Whatever. We all have things like this. This is a very common human experience. So why do you subject yourself to them? And why would you subject yourself to them over and over and over again? This movie, that is this driving... Like I said, that is the driving force of this movie. Mm-hmm. Is that she keeps on hanging out around this woman. This family, in particular, this woman and her child.
As you described as...
the Jersey Shore, yeah.
Jersey Shore.
So the cast of Jersey Shore shows up on the Greek Isles, interestingly.
Yeah.
And just Jersey Shores their way through this movie. Just literally just walks around. Everything is I wanted them to say gabagool and abada, just talk it's all just every stereotype you have of an Italian person from Staten Island. These people are that, and they just Jersey Shore their asses around the movie. And honestly, I think if they'd stunt cast them as the people from Jersey Shore, this would have been a great movie, and I would give it 5 stars, regardless of anything else I'm about to say.
That would have been great.
Like if Snooki, like if they stunt cast, if
Snooki was the pregnant,
is the woman, that would be great. I mean, it would be so good. But they don't do that. They don't have the bravery to take such a bold move. So this Jersey Shore family shows up, and they're supposedly mobbed up or whatever. It's never really clarified. And she just keeps on being around these people, even though like seeing the woman with her daughter and seeing the mother experiencing kind of similar, or kind of the growing pains of being a parent of a young child, keeps triggering her. Right, keeps triggering her. It's like, why does she do it? Why does she engage in this little bit of sadomasochism?
Yeah.
Well, the movie has no compelling answer to that.
No, no
answer at all, really. It doesn't even really attempt an answer, which... Do you think I'm okay with movies being open-ended, but, like, the movies have to still be internally consistent. Like, if the character is going to do something that just seems to make no sense, the movie at some point should give us some sort of reason, or at least imply a reason.
Yeah, I mean, because you get this feeling that Leda is lonely, isolated. I mean, even they played that David Byrne song, which is about like isolation in the movie. Like it is like
she clearly feels lonely and isolated. Yeah. Absolutely.
But then she deviates from her like self-preservation of her habitat and environment to incurring, as you said, seeking out a kind of compulsive nature of madness, of just torturing a young girl by stealing their daughter, by inserting herself into this family. And she becomes continually frustrated, continually uncomfortable. I was going to ask, do you think she mildly enjoys it, or do you think that she thinks she deserves it?
I mean,
I don't know if I don't think there's an obvious answer. I don't think the movie is probing in a, I think, effective degree to get to either of those answers. But I find it curious.
Dynamic there, right? Like, it would be interesting if, like, what is she getting out of it? What is it? What itch is it scratching for her? Like I said, the movie doesn't even render any answer to those questions particularly plausible. Like, that's my issue. Like, what's her explanation at the end? There's a line. She says, "I like to play." She's like, why? Because she's confronted about why she stole the doll.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I like to play. Which is like, I mean, maybe that's supposed to be an empty sort of like, she doesn't even know. Like I said, like, there's like, I mean, I guess that's what's frustrating about a movie like this is now that we start to talk about it, like, there's got to be, when you tell a story like this, right, there's such a fine line between being, in a way, it's kind of the opposite of what we just talked about. Like, if Don't Look Up wants to beat us over the head, this movie is so subtle, right, about what is going on. But like, you can cross the line from being subtle or open-ended to being like, I really don't know. We really don't have any idea what's happening, and this is just, we just do it because we do it. Yeah. Right? Like, she needs to go there to advance the plot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, and if it feels like there's no reason, or if it feels like the movie's not giving you any sense of why this is happening, then it does become a little bit like, I guess just she needs to go because we need to get from point A to point B, which is dissatisfying. I mean, I just think that the movie, like, it just doesn't... Like, I'm not convinced that, like, the filmmaker should know why she does it. Yeah. Right? Or should at least have it their own theories. And I just don't get the sense the movie has any idea.
No.
Like, that it literally, she just seems like she's the main character. She's in, her or her younger self is probably in every scene, I think.
Yes, yes.
It's from her POV, so it's like, it just seems... It seems a little weird that the movie doesn't even, like, she doesn't even, and nobody else even seems, like, there's nobody in the movie who wrestles at all with what she's doing.
No.
She doesn't really,
it's more
they react to it, But like even once it's revealed to, you know, the mother that she's obsessed with, she just freaks out and stabs her. Like, it's not, there's no sort of, and like I said, she says this line like, I like to play. And I remember that it was like very specifically because that's what you're waiting for, is you're waiting for the movie to give you some unraveling of what's made her the way that she is.
Yeah, do you think it's like I want to play, do you think it's a demented form of what she did not necessarily get to have or ignored or misses, or from the time that she
impose whatever sort of Freudian nonsense we want to.
That's true, yeah.
But the question is, like, is any of it endogenous to the movie?
Yeah,
like what's
true.
in the movie? Because yes, we could concoct a story, right?
That's true. We could.
We say, well, she did it to punish herself. She did it to. Yeah, we could say she did it to punish herself, or she did it to be more involved with these people. Like, maybe she planned to give the doll back in a way that made her even more of a hero. But then she sort of fails to do that for whatever reason.
Or like, gives up on that.
Like, maybe the point of that last scene with her is, like, she gives up because she feels like, well, maybe this woman will finally... maybe this is the one woman who will understand me.
Yeah.
Because she's going through what I went through, and I'm trying to tell her the truth, which is that, like, it doesn't get better.
Well, and the whole structure of the movie, basically introducing our character, introducing these kind of reactionary plights, based off of basically her discomfort and annoyance with the essentially you could say that they're kind of plebeians in her mind. Like, she's the grand intellectual, she's on vacation, she's doing research, and here all these people are having fun and on vacation. They're interrupting her sense of space, and she's annoyed and judgmental of these people.
Yeah, but that, like, if she just wanted to fuck with him, that would be funny. But yeah, that's not what's going on.
But that's not what's going on. It's because the movie structurally goes backwards to try and explain what she is today in hints or, you know, breadcrumbs to the idea, but those flashbacks don't elucidate much, and I feel like they concoct a redundancy.
Yes, they're all about her being a terrible mother.
Yeah.
Like, there's no I mean, like, here's the thing, right? I think it's good to make movies that tell the truth.
Yeah.
About parenthood and about motherhood and what's hard about it, and to not romanticize it or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's good.
Yeah.
I'm pro that. But the sort of unrelenting misery that she seems to feel isn't really standard either.
No.
Right? I mean, I'm not saying people don't experience it, right? But it doesn't resonate as like a particularly, it's certainly parenting can feel like that sometimes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right?
What was that movie Jason Reitman did, Tully, with Charlize Theron? Did you see that? I think that is a more honest portrayal of what is typical in motherhood. There have been a
lot lately. I think both of Mike Mills's movies, Come On, and 20th Century Women, are both much more interesting, sort of full-figured portrayals of parenthood and motherhood. Or even like Lady Bird, right? I think is a movie that, you know, is a better movie talking about kind of, because once again, like, we just, you know, we get this overly simplistic portrait, like, it's hard, so she leaves. That in terms of its broad contours is believable, but it's hard. It just doesn't. The movie tries to do too many things in that way, like, because the flashbacks are like, they're not enough to really flesh it out, but they take up too much of the movie in other ways.
But they also confuse, like, even in the flashbacks, they're making it seem her dissatisfaction is sexual rather than it is anything else.
Well, is it? But there is this sexual element, right? Like, who masturbates with the door open? That's another thing.
That was a text that you sent me. I was like, well.
That's fucking weird. Like,
it's just a bad setup for a scene. They don't know how to. They didn't know how to do that.
But, like, once again, they're trying to do something like, okay, women masturbating. That's a little bit transgressive. That's interesting, right? Talking about, like, what happens to you sexually after you have kids. It's all worthwhile territory.
Yeah.
I think that the movie, like, ultimately. You know, honestly, what's a perfect encapsulation of this movie in terms of how it handles these issues is that at one point some of the Jersey Shore cast show up at the movie theater where she's trying to watch a movie. Yeah. And she yells at them, and they yell back at her and call her a bitch or whatever. And she goes out to the usher. The usher comes in, and then they yell at her some more.
Well, they go quiet until the usher leaves.
The usher apparently is very intimidating. And then she says, "I'm going to call the police." And then out of nowhere, one of the guys says, "Call them. We love the police. Blue lives matter." And it's like,
that's right.
It's like the throwing in the line of Blue Lives Matter. It's like a gesturing to something that is topical without actually saying anything about it. Like, I feel like this movie gestures at a lot of different things. Like you said, like I didn't even think about postpartum depression in those terms, but because it isn't quite.
She's named after Yeats' poem, "Leda and the Swan," which is about postpartum depression.
But I mean, strictly speaking, the movie picks up a little bit after than that. In the flashbacks, because her kids are both kind of like, but whatever. It gestures at that. It gestures at sort of female sexuality and how it gets expressed. It doesn't get expressed, right? It gestures at all these different things. It gestures at sort of mental illness or whatever. But like I said, it doesn't ever cohere. And not only does it not cohere, right, but it doesn't even open up interesting possibilities. Like I said, like any sort of explanation we would give about what she does is totally just us spouting out, like I said, Freudian bullshit. Like, yeah, she wanted to be punished. She enjoyed it. She felt good. She was a sadomasochist. Whatever. That could all be true.
Sure.
Right? And those are but the problem is they're all equally plausible because the movie doesn't really seem to ultimately get at or be interested in getting at, like, why would someone do this to themselves?
Yeah.
Like, why would someone subject themselves not just once but over and over again to the triggering of what is clearly a deep trauma?
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think it's that the mistake of ambiguity, because leaving somebody with a sense of ambiguity, we have talked about in the past that is a great strength for a story, to leave you with a sense of openness to interpretation. But when the entire movie is open for interpretation based off of behaviors, based off of these elucidations of flashbacks, based off of these things where nothing can be pinpointed, it ultimately will then say nothing. And the movie, I feel, doesn't have much to say because of that.
Yeah, but it's like, once again, I think that, like, the gesturing at things too in some ways exacerbates the problem, right?
Yes.
Because it's I mean, honestly, I'm surprised that this movie, like I said, to me this is just I actually love it when critics all just en masse get baited into loving something.
And they have been baited, yeah.
Because it's funny, like, one thing someone said, they might not want this opinion put out there, but, like, he said that this was sort of like a, there was going to be like a kind of feminist-driven push to have a movie directed by a woman with, like, feminist themes. But the movie, if you want to make that push, that they should push, and I said I'd bring it up, so I will bring it up now, is Power of the Dog.
Sure, yeah.
Directed by Jane Campion. And obviously has less screen time for female actors, although Kristen Dunst has a big and important and I'm assuming potentially award-winning or at least
award-nominated performance
role.
Sure.
But that movie is, I would say, a feminist movie. It's about toxic masculinity. It's about the inability of sort of men to deal with kind of emotion and how they calcify because of their masculinity curdles and it can't find a positive expression.
Yeah.
Especially when they have a kind of hyper masculinity, right, which in some cases does evolve into an attraction to other men, right? But they can't deal with that.
There's another movie also out this year, another directorial debut by an actor, is Rebecca Hall. Passing, and that's on Netflix as well. I don't know if you've watched it.
I haven't watched it.
I also went to the theater to watch this one, and while I have my complaints about the movie, it's not exactly subtle in some of its venturing of topics about lighter-skinned black women passing as white back in, like, flapper, days in the 1920s. The movie ventures topics of femininity, of race, and of the complexities of its time, but also a reflection of complexities of now and what that means. And I feel like that movie is getting kind of left in the dust based off of they have chosen, the critical establishment has chosen Lost Daughter. Maggie Gyllenhaal is kind of the refreshing voice that has emerged this year of actors turning director and venturing complicated, what they deem complicated subject matter. I think it is empty subject matter. I think it is. There is a lot of complicated, as you said, issues that they suggest.
Yes, yeah. I mean, superficially, but yeah,
superficially.
Yeah, I mean, see, what's interesting is I once again I didn't really know what this movie was going to be exactly. I tried not to know too much. The way it looked, the way it started, I thought, well, this is going to be something. I thought it was going to be like some like sort of like a Eric Romer, kind of like a French New Wave.
Yeah,
like, it would
yeah,
just be a quiet. Like it would be a better movie if it did less, right? And if it focused on the things that it cared about.
It almost is doing too much to kind of take away from the point like it could be making.
The whole subplot, about her cheating and stuff like that. I just don't know that brings a lot to the table.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, she's sexually frustrated.
Yeah.
And she says she's selfish, whatever. I mean, but even that self-diagnosis is not particularly interesting. Like,
it's not.
Like, yeah, at this point, like, especially... It is weird because she is she's a very immature character, even as an adult.
Yes.
Like, she can't deal with her own emotions. She can't handle how she feels. She can't process it in a useful way. I mean, part of being a parent is reconciling in your own mind the fact that you love your child more than anything, but you're going to need some time away from them.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to put up with them all the time.
No.
And there's going to be times where they get on your nerves. Like, and if you're a mature person, hopefully that happens pretty quickly for you.
Yeah.
Because you have to get there. Like, as a parent, you have to get there. Because the alternatives are very unattractive.
Yes.
Like, you don't want to hate your kid, and you also don't want to be a martyr to the idea of being a parent.
Yeah.
Right? And she never gets out of that, apparently, to her present self. She's never been able to sort of process out. Like, it's so traumatic to her that she can't process it.
She doesn't have really a
She
relationship.
couldn't process it then.
Yeah.
Right? So she leaves. And she can't process her leaving or the emotional, sort of underlying emotional reasons she left. And, like, but once again, like, I mean, I'm trying to, I don't know what I'm talking myself into or out of something, but, like, it is a weird, like I said, it's just a very strange, it becomes a very strange portrait for that reason, which is that you don't get the sense that she's really different in the present than in the flashbacks in some crucial way. Like, she's had no development around the question of how to feel about how she felt and what she did. And like I said, I think it's an uninteresting treatment of an interesting topic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And like I said, and I do think it's bogged down. Although, I mean, I do think it's funny that she does fuck the world's most annoying person.
Yes. Yeah.
That's funny to me. And I could watch a movie about that.
Absolutely.
I could just watch that character just annoy... Because you know that guy's like fucking students too. So that I mean, I'm just saying that I'd watch that, like, kind of an erotic... comedy drama about the world's most annoying college professor, but it's just it doesn't, she doesn't go anywhere, and so the whole thing ends up feeling kind of turgid, you know. Like it just doesn't, like, there's, the reveal isn't interesting, nothing she does is particularly interesting, the way that she gets confronted even at the end is not issue. What, she just fucking stabs her, like.
Yeah, well,
okay.
We were trying to figure out
if,
the
like, crazy
the hat,
Jersey Shore,
if the hat had any significance, because it's a hat pin, so they put in the hat. She takes out the hat pin, and she stabs we're trying to figure out if that had any kind of
the hat pin's associated with her mother. She hates her mother.
Yeah.
But whatever. I mean, like I said, we can graft on whatever sort of weird psychoanalytical interpretation we want. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because I found the experience of watching the movie fundamentally dissatisfying because, as you say, it's just empty of an interesting account of the interesting topics that it's discussing.
I was gonna, before we maybe conclude, but I was gonna ask you a little bit about the end, because there is kind of a weird tone to the end that suggests perhaps maybe she is dead, maybe she has died, and it's kind of this last act in her mind, or this last desperate sort of call to her daughter because of something she has neglected. And apparently she has a better relationship with one of the daughters that she talks with. Occasionally we'll talk to this other one. I forget the names of the two daughters. She calls the one that she does not have a relationship with, the one that she has the most, I suppose, regret or antagonism for, whichever it might be. So I was going to ask, how do you, does that end, whether it's a genuine reaching out to her daughter or whether it's in her mind? I think it ultimately has the same message. Do you think that gives us an idea of what's going on with her?
I mean, honestly, I haven't thought about the ending that much, but I do think the ending is sort of it is kind of a Last Temptation of Christ ending. It's like she just wishes she had a normal relationship. Like, it seems to me like maybe it is a vision, or maybe it is her just forcing herself in reality. It doesn't really matter. But, like, she just wishes she had kind of a boring, normal relationship with her kid. Yeah. Where you just kind of call them and chat about nothing. Because it's just like, oh, yeah, just tell me about, like, the tone of that conversation is very ho-hum. Yeah. Which, of course, is meant to contrast the fact that she's been stabbed, maybe she's dying, maybe she's dead, whatever. Right? But, yeah, I mean, I get that, and I think that, like, given... If I was more invested in that character and her journey... and had more empathy for it, maybe that would be a satisfying ending. I get it. I think it's like, it's like you got wrapped up. I mean, I understand the sentiment, right? You spent your life wrapped up in your life's work, this project of like being a great scholar, right? Which is both it is hilarious, right? It's your classic thing where it's arduous, but it's also empty. Nobody cares. Yeah. You invest all your energy in being like the biggest translator of Auden into Italian or whatever, and nobody cares, and at the end of your life you're like, oh, what the fuck did I waste all my time on that for? I wish I just had like a nice relationship with my kids. I could have had a nice normal relationship with my kids where we'd call and we'd talk about nothing, but instead I devoted my life to this project, which in retrospect seems a little silly. I mean, that's there's a certain resonance to that.
But I don't know if, I was going to say, as you were explaining that, I'm like, I don't even think the movie is trying to say that. I don't even think, they clearly don't want to make her an empathetic individual, whether or not some of the things she's going to, mental illness, depression, or otherwise, loneliness, isolation, are relatable qualities, something that we can empathize with. She is nastier and more unpleasant. She's a malcontent. Like, she is all of these kinds of things that make it undesirable.
She has some nice moments. I mean, I think the problem with empathizing with her is not that she's good or bad. Sure. But that she just doesn't feel real enough. Yeah. Because of this lack of... Because she just does things that don't make any sense. And so it's like... You can empathize with all kinds of people. That's a trick of movies, right? Yeah. Like if you empathize with fucking Michael Corleone. That's a classic example, right? Whatever. It's not hard. Like in some ways, it's harder to make you not empathize. But the way the movie goes about it is by making her just seem inscrutable. Yeah. Right. And maybe that's the point. Maybe it's an exercise. Like how can we have a character who's the main character of the movie, but also seems kind of completely inscrutable. Like, she keeps on doing things and we don't know and we never know why. But they're still gesturing at reason. Like I said, it's like it's weird because they throw all these things out, but it feels like there's no connective tissue. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's like I said, like superficially, okay, so she had a kid and she fucked that up. So she's obsessed with this woman who's has a kid and who may be in the process of fucking it up. Or at least is feeling things that she relates to. So she gets in there and kind of fucks that situation up more. Like, once again, the relationship is entirely superficial. Like, why would she want to do that? Mm-hmm. Just because you've got similar, like, mother, child. That's a mother, that's a child. They must have something to do with each other, but why? Like, why wouldn't her have been a fucked up mother made her not want to, like, become a great golfer or, like, get into hard drugs or, like, like, that's the thing is, like, maybe this is as close as I've gotten to making this point, is, like, the superficial relationship does not establish just because they look similar, like, that's not the way life actually works. Like, something gets fucked up in one area of your life, and you might spin off and do something completely random. Like, you might decide to move to Saskatchewan and become an isolated moose hunter because a girl told you that she didn't like your beard. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's the idea that, like, oh yeah, I'm going to engage in some fucked up play that is very similar superficially to that just doesn't make any sense.
It would make more sense if the Dakota Johnson character was not feeling the same feeling that she's relating to, that she actually has a very, very good, nurturing, caring, happy relationship with her daughter.
I'm just thinking, like,
but she sees herself in her.
You could have a real interesting movie where they talk, and but that's the thing, is, like, the movie is bogged down by this suspense plotting that doesn't do it any favor.
Yes,
that just seems to be there entirely for, like, to give it some narrative momentum. Like, if this is and, like, I don't know what's in the book, but, like, just in terms of the story, whether it's attributed to her or to Elena Ferrante or whoever, like, it's a much more interesting movie if it's just them kind of talking, or, like, if it wants to confront, like, being at that moment in motherhood where you kind of are like, this kind of sucks, but I don't want to just abandon my kid, and I still have this sort of elemental animal love for them. I just don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I kind of hate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
But instead, it's just like, it's just, I'm just repeating myself.
No.
I mean, none of it just doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't.
Or it goes too many places and ends up not going anywhere.
And that you brought up that the tone of the movie is much like what the trailer incited was a thriller. It's almost suspense. There's something of a question at the end of this that is ultimately unconcerned with it, that it ultimately is unconcerned with finding, mining that territory for something worthwhile. And you could have tackled this in all sorts of different directions for a more, robust assessment of modern day motherhood, dissatisfaction,
and then you could have
whatever
an actually
that is.
ambiguous ending where it's kind of people part and you don't really know what they got from it. But instead you got this huge climax that kind of comes out of nowhere. That, I guess, because the Jersey Shore people are bad people, they're mobbed up, they'll just go around fucking stabbing people, right? Or whatever, they don't give a shit. It just all felt, that felt very perfunctory to me.
Yeah, absolutely. As well. Yeah, for me as well. Well, I wouldn't necessarily recommend The Lost Daughter, but, since it's on Netflix.
Go watch Power of the Dog.
Power of the Dog is well worth your while. There's a lot to mine in that territory. There's so much psychological depth, so much character depth in that movie that you could watch it over and over and find new kernels of information. I mean, I'm excited to watch it again, probably this year before, like, Academy Award season time.
You know what movie I watched before I watched this movie? It was family movie night. I watched Zootopia.
Oh, that's a very good
movie. That's a nice movie.
That's
you watch Zootopia.
Yeah, I mean, Zootopia is one of those. I think it handles its subject matter and a very well articulated allegory, especially for children, and it's very entertaining. I think on the scope for adults as well. The characters are very well articulated. Zootopia is a good movie.
I like Zootopia.
It's a good movie.
I hadn't watched it.
Oh, you hadn't watched it?
I watched it. It was my first time watching it, so. That's a little recommendation for an older, a few years old at least, Disney movie.
Oh yeah, I guess I haven't done like a recommendation in a while. On the 1st of January 1st in the new year, I watched a movie for the podcast, which you will hear me talk about in the future, but it was Stephen DeJarrent, I think is the filmmaker. Stephen DeJarrett, who did Miracle Mile. It's from 1988. That was exceptional. It was like Martin Scorsese's After Hours, but with the apocalypse impending, and what would you do with your last hour of life? And we had a really good time sifting through that movie. That was very good.
Some older movies to recommend. Gosh, if you can still see Macbeth in a theater, go see that.
Yeah, Macbeth was great.
You should definitely see that in a theater.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, these movies, they weren't so good.
No, today was not so good. But I enjoyed this conversation.
I really wanted to like the daughter movie because...
Just so
we could have a fight. We don't have enough fights.
That's true. Maybe we'll have... we'll see what we're reviewing. The Scream's coming. Maybe we'll have disagreements on Scream.
Who's going to take the pro on Scream?
Apparently, a lot of reviewers are taking pro on Scream, so I'm actually curious because the trailers do not invite
maybe I'll take the
a positive reaction.
It's not really my thing, but... maybe I'll take the pro on Scream.
Well, maybe. Maybe I will try. Maybe I should try because I'm a little more negative.
It's a year of positivity for Kyle.
I'll try. But we'll have some more episodes coming your way. Maybe we'll do some more like this, like venturing some movies that are going to be on the topic of conversation for the Academy Awards. Maybe we'll dive deep into the ones we hadn't talked about. But we have some new movies coming out. 355 came out this weekend. Maybe we'll meet up sometime.
Maybe we'll go see a movie.
Maybe we'll go see a movie.
Let's go to the movie. Okay. That's great. We did a great job. Good job out of you, buddy.
Thanks so much. You too.
Kyle Bruehl. I know movies and you don't.
Yeah.
Ben Thelen, Dead Reckoner. This is Up-to-Date Cinephile. Sound off in the comments. Like, subscribe. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We'll see you next time.